Hello everyone, John Maher here. This is your Grass10 update on the Dairy Edge. Well, it has been a roller coaster of a week with some highs and lows in many ways. Some locations got lots of rain. Parts of, Kerry got a lot of nice, but parts of Cork, the Midlands, and then those other parts who got little or nothing. So we know, for example, Oak Park in Carlow got 2 mils of rain, and places I mentioned earlier got over 50 mils of rain. So that was the lottery. And then some parts of the country were in deep soil moisture deficits, and other parts not so much, and would have benefited from the rain. But other parts who got a level of rainfall, but it is not enough to re-kick growth into shape because the soil moisture deficit is so far, maybe 80 to 100 millimeters of soil moisture deficit. So you have that. I would say the grass growth is not that bad in the northwest at all, but then very, very low in the southeast corner. And it's probably poor in many parts of the south as well. So the level of rainfall received and the size of the soil moisture deficit will determine the response in grass growth to the rain that came. Some will be disappointed, some will be surprised and be happy. But I think the vast majority will be disappointed and look at the figures. And there doesn't appear to be much rain for the coming week, looking and listening to Maher at the end of the week. That was not the case at the start of the week, in which they outlined some rainfall for the weekend. But I think for most of the country, that has disappeared now. Any rain that will come will be in the north and the west. So the week was also warm. There was wind at times, so that hasn't helped the story of grass growth. For the record, anyway, the average figures from pasture-based Ireland, which are all over Ireland, and people have to remember that the average farm cover is less than 500, which is an indication of poor grass supply. The corporate livestock unit was 161. The average growth for those who record it, and some people who are on deep soil moisture deficit and poor growth are not walking, so add that caveat to the figures. But growth was recorded on average at 26 for the previous week, and demand is at 39. So that means we're growing a lot less than we're eating, which means then that the diet has to change. For the record, for the diet, for those who did put in the figures, we had 11 kilos of grass, about 4.5 kilos of meal, and 3.5 kilos of silage. It's not unusual for me to come across, a diet of a third grass, third meal, third silage at this stage now. The dry matter is still running high. So Moore Park today was about 26. Oak Park was closer to 30. Athenry, which is in the west of Ireland, was about 21, 22%. But as the week will go on with no rain, I think those figures will only increase. So the story of the week then was variable rainfall, which will lead to variable growth, and it depends where you were and what you got. I suppose the farmers with a greater soil moisture deficit will require more rainfall, to be honest, to kick on growth. But we need to assess it. Many people are not walking the farm to see where the grass recovery is. Some farms will grow better than others, and some fields within the farm will grow better than others, and that variation is there, and we see that, So paddocks that are brown, the best thing to do is graze them off. They're not going to recover. Paddocks that are green are growing, and you have to try and work with that opportunity within the farm. So we're getting lots of questions about reseeds and about fertiliser application. As you can see, it was a lottery in rainfall. It's also a bit of a lottery in terms of soil moisture deficit. And if the soil moisture deficit is large, like the rainfall is not going to correct that. It wasn't just enough. So I suppose you're into then to seeing what's going on. So anyway, after the rain fell on Monday, I decided to go walk a dry farm today to see what was happening. There's a few things that were very, very obvious. The farm got somewhere over an inch of rain, or 25, 30 mils. It definitely looked greener, but I wouldn't say all of it was growing now. The reseeds grew well and the fresh grass grew well. That was obvious, and there was a recovery there. And I suppose that won't surprise many people. Some of the paddocks that were grazed, I would say 7-10 days, I was disappointed with their level of growth, to be honest. Old grass, but I mean by old grass, I mean it's 25 days there out, low cover now, like as in 500 or 600 kilograms. It was absolutely doing nothing, and it just dawned on me very quickly that unless that's grazed off, it's not going to grow either, despite getting a level of rainfall that even some might kill for. But being close to an inch. I'd have to say I was a bit disappointed by the level of recovery. Okay, it's only 2 or 3 days after the rain on the Monday, but yeah. Anyway, I suppose we're in a situation here that's quite difficult. Look at the fertilizer story, then I suppose the first answer is very, very easy for me. If the farm is not growing well, got low levels of rainfall, well then, like, and the soil moisture deficit quite high, well then there's no point in spreading fertilizer, full stop. There's just isn't. And there's not going to be much rain at the end of this week either for most of the country. So then in places like the Northwest and Kerry, we just see that the fertilizer application will be fine. It's all part of autumn build-up, so that's grand. Then you have a bunch of, I suppose, farms and paddocks and farmers who are in what we'll call the midpoint. Paddocks that are growing now after rainfall will get some nitrogen from soil release as the bugs got back working after the dry spell, and that's called mineralization. That will release some fertilizer nitrogen. But spreading where fertilizer then where the growth is low, and the soil moisture deficit deep, it's difficult to justify fertilizer application there, despite trying to speculate on rainfall and things like that. So I suppose in an ideal situation, fertilizer should be applied or spread about 1 week to 10 days after when rain falls, when the growth starts to pick up, to allow the sward to pick up, to make use of the nitrogen that's released from the soil. But looking at the figures that I see anyway here, there is still quite a large soil moisture deficit there, and a lot of places didn't get enough rainfall to justify fertilizer application. And I think it's as simple as that, and have to wait for more rainfall to come. So the reality, though, I suppose, then, is that most farms, especially in the south, are probably struggling with grass growth and grass supply. The diet largely revolves around feeding silage, meal, and some grass. On a lot of farms now, the calls come in. The out farms are out of grass. The silage ground is gone, or some of it's been grazed or zero grazed. The zero grazed grass is all running out. So and bales are starting to run out now on places as well. And pits are about to be opened or have been opened. Some farms didn't have bales, so they were opening pits already. So this is getting a bit concerning now, and it's no harm that people would look at their own fodder situation and see where they are. You need a quantity of silage to get through the winter, and you need a quantity of quality silage to get through the winter. In some cases, there is quantity of silage, but not enough quality silage as that's being eaten at the moment, and people have to wake up to that fact that this has to be planned about around that. We need a level of quality silage for next spring, and some people are now in a state that they are eating into their winter forage requirements. So that requires assessment and a bit of a plan to work on as you look into the winter. From a grazing perspective, then the best option is to try to keep the farm on a 25 to 30-day rotation. This will allow a structured plan when the rainfall and growth does start to recover. And I suppose it'll also allow some level of grass in the diet, and again give a structure, which is what you're trying to do here. Until then, I suppose it's a case of doing the best you can with what you have inside in the yard, and it's not going to be that easy for the rest of August now. You're trying to build grass from August into September into October. If you go back to last year, those who put the effort in, even though they had the low cover on the 1st of September, put the effort in, got a long way to getting a good level of grass supply by the 1st of October. So there is hope there. There is a plan that can be followed that can build grass in the farm when the growth and rain does arrive, but that's a case of waiting for that to happen. So that's the story of the week. As I said, a week of highs and lows. A lot of disappointment for some, unfortunately, because of deep soil moisture deficits, and disappointed with rainfall amounts. I suppose from an performance point of view, if you're managing to hold yield, you're doing very, very well. If you're managing to hold protein, you're doing very, very well as well. I do know, and listen to the figures though, that people's yield is starting to fall and people's protein is struggling to hold. So that's a bit of a challenge. We have no feature farmer this week. From a dairying perspective, we featured a sheep farm this week from Acton, so I'm not going to go through that story. Apart from, I suppose, one or two quick things about walking the farm and monitoring grass supply. I suppose again, action's been taken on the sheep farm to reduce demand and to try and match growth and demand a bit better. This involves, getting rid of surplus animals and getting rid of culls and all that. And there's a message in that for dairy farms as well, I suppose. Right, that's the story. Not a great week for many, and you would hope that the weather will change as we go further into August. But anyway, if you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website, and the link to this newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We'd also like to thank those who support the Grass10 campaign: AIB, Grass and Agro, Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, FBT, and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I'll talk to you all next week when we hope that the growth will be better and a bit of rainfall will arrive to boost things at farm level. With that, best of luck.